Hello guys, welcome back to our anime explainer. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of upcoming episode of The Great Ruler based on novel. So let's start. At the peak of Spiritual Light Mountain, covered with lingering clouds, the three giant peaks, akin to pillars that prop the sky up, pierced through the clouds. As of now, however, a dense and numerous amount of figures had surfaced in the air surrounding them. With a glance, one can almost not find an end to the present crowd. All of the students that had participated in the hunt converged there, waiting for the incoming final fight. At this moment, gazes were sent towards the summit of the three great peaks, where three figures were quietly sitting. While the mountain winds were blowing at their clothing, their eyes were open, without even the slightest trace of change, due to the gathering of countless students. Even their breathing was calm and tranquil, without the slightest bit of disturbance. All of the students were staring at the three figures, with thick respect shown within their eyes. The three people in their sights should be the final protectors of this hunt. They were the previous top three ranks of the heavenly rankings, and were now the three great generals of the punishment hall. In the surroundings of the mountain peak, the clouds fluttered around as the sea of humans pervaded the air. However, what's strange was that there wasn't any clamoring and arguing noises present. Everyone was able to feel a faint pressure radiating from the bodies of the three figures on the top of the mountain peak. Enveloping the entire stretch of the world, it caused them to feel as if their heads were being weighed down. Within the silence that blotted the sky, three figures slowly walked out, before stopping in the air 1,000 meters away from the three giant peaks. Regardless of the surroundings of Spiritual Light Mountain, or the northern public square, everyone's gazes had converged onto the bodies of those three figures. Within those gazes, there was anticipation, apprehension, doubt. However, regardless of that, those three figures, as of now, had undoubtedly become the focus of everyone's attention. At the instant when they walked out, the three figures that were sitting on the giant peaks slowly opened their tightly closed eyes. Bang! The spiritual energy of the world seemed to have erupted and explosively swept out at this instant. Intense booming and rumbling sounds could be faintly discernible as they resounded across the world. Shinsangshin, you finally arrived. At the middle giant peak, a male gave a faint smile as his tranquil voice slowly rang out. However, this made the hearts of countless people subsequently throb as a pressure enveloped over them. Ha ha, I've let senior brother Lin Jing wait for a long time. Coming to a stop in front of the male, Shin Sangshin cupped his hands and sent his greetings, while his eyes made a faint contraction that was unnoticeable. That's Lin Jing of the three great generals. Mu Chen thought while sending his gaze over, only to see a male dressed in a black outfit. He had a head full of white hair. Instead of a pale white, it radiated with a silvery shadow, with light circulating through it, making it seem mysterious. At this time, he had already acquired some information about the three great generals. This Lin Jing was said to be the person with the highest strength amongst the three great generals. Undoubtedly the previous number one on the heavenly rankings. Mu Chen's expression slowly turned dignified, as he was able to sense a strong pressure radiating from within Lin Jing's body. That sort of feeling was akin to a mountain range appearing above someone's head, causing people to be unable to catch their breath. This Lin Jing must have already stepped into the heavenly completion stage. Furthermore, he might not be only at the heavenly completion initial stage. Heavenly completion stage, that's the final step before sovereign stage. If sovereign stage experts were able to become a regional lord in a continent, then heavenly completion stage experts could be considered as regional tyrants. Since Lin Jing was able to achieve a strength of heavenly completion stage at such an age, that was sufficient to indicate his possession of astonishing talent. There's nothing that could be said for the long wait. However, since it's the final fight, we'll not throw it. A voice rang out from the giant peak on the right of Lin Jing. Looking over, Mu Chen spotted a male dressed in red. His hair was scarlet red, akin to a burning flame. Around him, the air showed faint traces of distortion, as if created by a high temperature. "That's Jiyu Qianyang, your opponent this time," muttered Li Xiantong to Mu Chen in a low voice. Upon hearing those words, Mu Chen's eyes instantly contracted as he gravely stared at the red-haired male. The spiritual energy of the world around the latter seemed to be exceedingly erratic, as if it was a patch of the burning sea of flames. This pressure coming from Jiyu Qianyang was not as strong as Lin Jing's, however, it still caused a dangerous flavor to course through Mu Chen's body. Mu Chen knew that there would not be a single one amongst the three great generals that were easy to be dealt with. Jiyu Qianyang's strength should be around heavenly completion initial stage. The divine art he trains in is called the heavenly inflammation divine art. This makes his spiritual energy akin to heavenly flames, which are overbearing and burn with a furious intensity. Any action he makes is enough to burn and incinerate cities and mountains. Li Xiantong tried his best to give more information to Mu Chen, in an effort to allow him to muster a better response. Mu Chen nodded his head as he thought, heavenly completion initial stage is exceedingly strong. This was not something that He Yao, with his half-step into the heavenly completion stage, could compare to. If He Yao was allowed to cross hands with Jiyu Qianyang, Mu Chen could definitely confirm that He Yao would be defeated extremely miserably within 5 rounds. Furthermore, Jiyu Qianyang's spiritual energy was somewhat different from the norm. Mu Chen wondered, compared to my spiritual energy that is fused with the 9 nether flames, exactly which one is more overbearing? Mu Chen stared at Jiyu Qianyang for a while, before looking at the leftmost giant peak. Right there, similarly, was a sitting man. This person had a head full of black hair, with a rather handsome face. Faintly smiling at the crowd, he did not show any intent to speak. Compared to Lin Jing and Jiyu Qianyang, this person clearly appeared to not want to attract too much attention. However, Mu Chen knew that if anyone underestimated him, the only thing they could say was that their heads got muddled. "Is that senior brother Zhu Qing? Who's also your opponent this time?" Mu Chen looked towards Li Xiantong and asked. Li Xiantong turned his gaze towards the black-haired male, faintly nodded his head, then replied, "It's said that during that year, senior brother Zhu Qing had a nickname within the Northern Heavens Spiritual Academy. He was called Undefeatable Mountain." Undefeatable Mountain? Mu Chen muttered in startlement. The meaning is that when he fought with people, he would basically not lose. Li Xiantong replied with a smile. Then why did the first rank in the heavenly rankings still belong to senior brother Lin Jing? Mu Chen asked with some doubt. "I never said that he won." Li Xiantong replied with a smile, as he abstrusely looked at the faintly smiling black-haired male sitting on the giant peak in the distance, before continuing, "A large majority of his fights resulted with no victories and no losses. The main reason was due to his special intentions, however, there were also other reasons. The divine art he trains in is named the Undefeatable Divine Art. It sounds absolutely overbearing, however, it is an extremely gentle divine art. There isn't any overly intense attacking moves within it, and the majority is focusing on dealing with people, before finally causing the opponent's spiritual energy to be completely wasted. Therefore, within the Northern Heavens Spiritual Academy, the large majority of the people he crossed hands with would end with a draw. Therefore, other people have given him the nickname of Undefeatable Mountain. Hearing the explanation, Mu Chen was astonished. This so-called undefeatable divine art was unexpectedly that special and unique. However, it was very clear that, at certain times, not being defeated and not having a victory was, from some sense, already a very frightening achievement. Zhu Qingshan, naturally, could not be overly vicious when crossing hands with the people in the Northern Heavens Spiritual Academy. However, if he were to truly have killing intent, even that gentle divine art might reveal its malevolent side. These three great generals. None of them were simple. While Mu Chen and Li Xiantong were talking in low voices, Shen Sangxing cupped his hands and sent a smile towards Jiyu Qianyang, before saying, "A victory gained by the others' throwing is something that I also cannot stand to see. How should the later fight be fought? Undeniably, you are the current first rank on the heavenly rankings. Your courage isn't small," replied Jiyu Qianyang with a smile, while his scarlet hair appeared to be like burning flames. It could be seen that he treats Shen Sangxing with extreme regard. The latter's strength was something that even made him feel dread. This made him unable to help secretly sighing in exclamation. This batch of students in the Northern Heavens Spiritual Academy this time seemed more formidable than theirs. Lin Jing made a gesture with his hands, before standing up and saying, "We've already waited here for so long. Shen Sangxing, you three should already come up. Only by passing through us will all the students that have participated in the hunt be able to obtain the spiritual light empowerment, if not." Before completing his words, the intent within was something everyone understood. In the next instant, Shen Sangxing tightly clenched his fist as anticipation and nervousness erupted within his eyes. "I invite senior brother Lin Jing to bestow his guidance." Shen Sangxing spoke out with a large laugh, with the laughing voice filled with a powerful and free intent that showed his disdain. Clenching his palm, golden light condensed, transforming into a golden-colored divine spear. The tip of the spear was akin to a folded lotus. Golden light circulated and radiated from it, showing off its boundless spiritual energy that was contained within. Shen Sangxing gripped the golden spear in his hands. With a move of his body, he appeared on the giant peak that Lin Jing was on. Heavily impaling his golden spear onto the ground, a shock wave swept out, causing the surface of the summit of the mountain peak to be instantly swept clean. The moment Shen Sangxing moved out, he had intercepted the strongest of the three great generals, Lin Jing. This did not exceed the expectations of the crowd. Being the previous first rank of the heavenly rankings, only the current first rank of the heavenly ranking could contend with him. Upon seeing this, Li Xiantong patted Mu Chen's shoulders. In the next instant, his body moved, and appeared on the giant peak Zhu Qingshan was on. Cupping his hands and sending his greetings, he said, "Senior brother Zhu Qingshan, this time, let me be your opponent. The undefeatable divine art is something that I've also wanted to ask guidance from." Zhu Qingshan continued to maintain his gentleness and gave a smile. Without saying any words, he only nodded his head. His hands faintly hung down from his body, while a warm and affable expression appeared on his handsome face. Following the successive movements of Shen Sangxing and Li Xiantong, all of the gazes in the stretch of the world instantly shot towards Mu Chen, who was still standing in the air. At this moment, faint startlement and surprise appeared within the eyes of Lin Jing, Zhu Qingshan, and Jiyu Qianyang. "Don't tell me that you're letting him come up for the third slot," Jiyu Qianyang said while faintly wrinkling his forehead. Looking at Shen Sangxing and Li Xiantong in the distance, he asked, "Your batch of students should not be weak to such an extent, right? Can a heavenly transformation initial stage be a representation of your strongest?" He did not mean to look down on Mu Chen, but this was just an elaboration of the facts. After all, a youth at the heavenly transformation stage initial phase had appeared here, and this was not something that was rational. "Senior Jiyu Qianyang, he'll show you something unexpected." Facing Jiyu Qianyang's doubts, Shen Sangxing and Li Xiantong simultaneously smiled, by chance, before replying to him. "Oh, really? That truly makes me want to see it," Jiyu Qianyang said while raising his eyebrows. He was, similarly, not an idiot. Since even Shen Sangxing and Li Xiantong had spoken out, that meant to say that the heavenly transformation stage initial phase youth in front of him should have some methods of his own. If not, those two would definitely not let the latter carry such an important burden. Facing the doubtful gaze of Jiyu Qianyang, Mu Chen took a deep breath. The expression within his eyes gradually turned dignified and grave as his body slowly fluttered towards the giant peak the former was at. Regardless of the surroundings at Spiritual Light Mountain, or the northern public square, both had quietened down at this instant. Countless gazes anxiously stared at Mu Chen. Of the three fights, the one he would be in would be the most unbalanced. Disregarding the gazes that hid the sky and covered the earth, Mu Chen tightly stared at Jiyu Qianyang. Slowly cupping his hands, a low and deep voice that contained not a single trace of fear resounded across the sky. Senior brother Jiyu, freshman Mu Chen of the Northern Heavens Spiritual Academy seeks your guidance. Freshman Mu Chen. When Mu Chen's deep and calm voice rang across the majestic mountain peak, the expressions on Lin Jing, Zhu Qingshan, and Jiyu Tianyan's faces all froze as a peculiar shadow appeared within their eyes. They never imagined that the youth in front of them was just a freshman. However, it was such a freshman that had finally distinguished himself above the rest in this hunt, and had even become the representation of the strongest within the students. This kind of matter made Jiyu Qianyang feel truly incredulous. While the three great generals were still students, freshmen didn't even have the qualifications of participating in the hunts, even so much so as becoming the representation of strength. Your batch of students are also truly interesting. Lin Jing shook his head, before staring at Shen Sangsheng in front of him, whose imposing manner was astonishing, and wasn't the slightest bit weaker than himself. Speaking to him, Lin Jing said, however, I hope he's truly something, if not, we'll presume that your batch of students are truly not worthy of respect. Ha ha. Gripping the golden-colored spear in his hands, Shen Sangsheng laughed heroically, before replying, Senior brother Lin Jing, please feel relaxed. Our batch of students will definitely win, no matter what. Oh, really? Lin Jing said with a smile, before taking a step forward. Boundless spiritual energy instantly swept out, bringing a surging pressure with it. At this instant, the clouds lingering in the sky were immediately scattered by the pressure wave that was sweeping out. Heavenly completion stage middle phase. Lin Jing did not have the slightest intent of restraint. Taking a step forward, he had completely revealed his full strength. Feeling the strong spiritual energy pressure radiating out, the faces of the countless students in the surroundings of the Spiritual Light Mountain had faintly changed as they thought, this senior brother Lin Jing is too strong. If he was placed among us students, the only person who could chat and laugh in front of him might only be Shen Sangsheng. Heavenly completion stage middle phase. Undeniably, you're the previous first rank on the heavenly rankings. A ripple seemed to spread out from within Shen Sangsheng's eyes as a scorching intent slowly erupted from within. Grabbing his golden spear tightly, he furiously stomped his feet. Bang! At that very instant, the earth seemed to intensely quake, as a similar boundless spiritual energy furiously swept out, with Shen Sangsheng in the center. Golden-colored spiritual energy illuminated the horizon, completely resisting the spiritual energy pressure radiating from within Lin Jing's body. Shen Sangsheng's strength had similarly reached heavenly completion middle stage. It was not the slightest bit weaker than Lin Jing. His too awesome, countless students exclaimed excitedly in admiration, as unconcealable worship showed within their eyes. Although the two were of a similar level, Shen Sangsheng was, after all, younger than Lin Jing. However, his power was not weaker than Lin Jing. In the competition, it was clear that Shen Sangsheng had gotten the upper hand. If he were to reach the same age as Lin Jing, he would definitely far exceed the current Lin Jing. The overlord of the heavenly rankings sure deserved his title. No bad. Facing the Shen Sangsheng in front of him, even Lin Jing had faintly nodded his head in approval, with admiration even showing in his eyes. He had a lot of sentiment towards the Northern Heavens Spiritual Academy. Being able to see his junior brothers exceeding him, other than sighing in lamentation, he felt exceedingly gratified. As of now, Shen Sangsheng's strength was worthy to be treated seriously. While Lin Jing and Shen Sangsheng were locked in a confrontation, Li Xiantong and Zhu Qingshan had also exhibited their strongest might. The degree of spiritual energy of the two was slightly inferior than the former two, however. It had also reached the degree of heavenly completion initial stage, when the two boundless spiritual energies radiating from the latter two collided, peals of thunder seemed to form and ring out. The opponents for these two fights were exceptionally similar to each other. Furthermore, all of them clearly possessed abundant combat experience. Added with their various skills and techniques, wanting to quickly find the victor was clearly not an easy matter. Therefore, countless gazes started to turn and landed on the giant peak where the third fight was. Over there were the two people with the greatest disparity in strength. Of the three fights, it was clearly the place where the difference was easiest to determine. Looks like you've become the most critical key. Jiyu Qianyang retracted his gaze from the other two fights in the distance and looked towards Mu Chen. With his capabilities, he was naturally able to see that the people in the two fights were of similar strength. If they continued like that, the result would most likely be a draw. And if they were both to draw, their fight over here would be the critical point to determine victory or defeat. If Mu Chen won, all of the students would able to smoothly pass through this hunt. If he were to lose, the result would be self-evident that everyone would leave with empty hands. Mu Chen pursed his lips as the expression in his eyes turned dignified, however, he did not reply to Jiyu Qianyang. Although your strength doesn't seem to be strong, your courage isn't small. This placement isn't something that ordinary people would dare to accept. Jiyu Qianyang said indifferently. He was once a student, and had also participated in the hunts, and was even the strongest student representative in that batch. Therefore, he was very clear of how much pressure that place gave. With that kind of strength, Mu Chen was still able to stand up. This kind of pressure was exceptional. It was this point that made Mu Chen feel rather pleasing to Jiyu Qianyang's eyes. Although this place is very stressful, someone has to stand up. Mu Chen replied in a soft voice. Hearing his reply, Jiyu Qianyang nodded his head before retreating 2 steps. Inserting his hands into his sleeves, his fiery red hair was blown by the mountain winds till they resembled flames fluttering and dancing. He slowly spoke out, looking at your courage, I'll let you make the first move. After all, Jiyu Qianyang had arrogance in his blood, with his strength far outclassing Mu Chen. He was also older, therefore, he felt it was not worth his dignity to get the first attack off. Then, I'll thank senior brother Jiyu. Mu Chen was not stupid to let go of this kind of opportunity. As of now, he was the inferior side. If he was unable to guarantee even this kind of opportunity, even Jiyu Qianyang might shake his head towards him. An unreasonable person was not worthy of high regards to him. Jiyu Qianyang faintly nodded his head. Obviously, Mu Chen's decisiveness made him feel rather satisfied. If he continued to force his way in a fight, that would simply be taking everyone's hard work and making a joke out of it. Mu Chen took a deep breath, without saying any more words, his body fluttered back as he retreated. In the next instant, he sat down high in the air, as his eyes slowly started to close. Upon seeing this, Jiyu Qianyang was faintly startled, before a peculiar expression erupted from his eyes. This was due to him noticing spiritual seals starting to condense around Mu Chen's body. So he's a spiritual array master, Jiyu Qianyang understood in a flash, before an interested expression erupted from his eyes. Mu Chen's mental state had already calmed down. He blocked all of the disturbances coming from the outside world as his mental state sunk down, trying hard to find the miraculous feeling he had felt when he touched the heart-eye state. Facing an opponent on the level as Jiyu Qianyang, he simply did not the slightest chance of winning, as he did not have the qualifications to drag the fight on. He had to use his genuine method the moment he took action, if not, he would not have the slightest chance of success. Arranging a rank 5 spiritual array was obviously one of the strongest methods Mu Chen had in his arsenal. As of now, Mu Chen was a rank 4 spiritual array master. Wanting to successfully arrange a rank 5 spiritual array, he had to rely on the heart-eye state. However, as of now, Mu Chen simply had no guarantees in entering this state, and could occasionally touch it. Thus, the current him could only work hard in order to feel that miraculous feeling once again, and rely on it to enter the heart-eye state. Mu Chen had completely calmed down as spiritual seals continued to condense around his body. However, he did not have the intention of bringing this a step higher. This pace that was not hurried or rushed continued to spread out. Countless gazes were already converged on Mu Chen's body. Even on the northern public square, everyone had trained their eyes tightly onto him. All of them wanted to know exactly what Mu Chen wanted to use to contend against Jiyu Qianyang, whose strength was at the heavenly completion stage initial phase. On the podium in the northern public square, a few elders started to narrow their eyes as they looked at the gigantic light screen in the sky that was showing the fights of the heavenly completion stages. This was already enough to spark interest in them. Oh! The eyes of Dean Tai Kang, which were as deep as the starry sky, suddenly had faint fluctuations as he looked with some astonishment at the figure of Mu Chen in the light screen. Beside him, a number of white-haired elders started to make startled noises. These fluctuations, the eyes of a white-haired elder lit up a bit, before saying with a gentle smile, "Interesting. This Mu Chen seems to have a high talent in his training in spiritual arrays. He's actually able to reach the initial contact with the heart-eye state. Not simple." As the voice of the white-haired elder rang out, on the giant peak, the spiritual energy fluctuations around Mu Chen's body suddenly erupted out. The spiritual seals that were already formed shattered in an instant, before condensing again at an astonishing speed. The number of spiritual seals had also explosively increased multiple times. In a short span of a number of breaths, it had exceeded over 200. Rank 5 spiritual array, countless people involuntarily cried out in shock. Only when arranging a rank 5 spiritual array would one need so many spiritual seals. The expression on Jiyu Qianyang's face changed as he stared, with some astonishment, at Mu Chen. He never thought that the latter would actually be able to arrange a rank 5 spiritual array. He thought, this Mu Chen truly has some capabilities. No wonder why he would be able to allocate it the third strongest representative spot. Who? Around Mu Chen's body, hundreds of spiritual seals rushed towards the sky, before rapidly assimilating into the air. Instantly, the spiritual energy of the world erupted out. As spiritual energy swept out like gales, they took a form across the horizon. Incomparably complicated rays of spiritual energy rapidly formed an outline. In the next moment, they had formed an incomparably large spiritual energy light array that was faintly discernible in the sky, while tyrannical spiritual energy fluctuations gushed out. As the light array enveloped the horizon akin to two black lotuses, it slowly revolved, radiating with astonishing pressure. At this moment, Mu Chen opened his eyes and looked at the formed spiritual array, before deeply exhaling in relief. Although the time he took was somewhat long, he was fortunately able to successfully arrange it. Not bad. Never would have imagined that you're capable of arranging a rank 5 spiritual array. At this time, Jiyu Qianyang had slowly spoke. Raising his head to look at the incomparably large spiritual array, he faintly smiled while saying, "So, this is your method." Upon hearing his words, Mu Chen gave a faint smile. With a clench of his palm, a metallic ball, covered in rust spots, appeared in a flash. With a flick of his finger, the metallic ball shot out. Rays of spiritual energy that hid the skies and covered the earth erupted out. Under the shocked gazes of countless people, it rapidly took shape. The spiritual energy fluctuations coming from it were not any weaker than the rank 5 spiritual array that Mu Chen had just successfully arranged. That means that this spiritual array was a rank 5 spiritual array. Mu Chen had, unexpectedly, thrown out 2 rank 5 spiritual arrays at once. As Jiyu Qianyang gazed at the gigantic objects in the sky, the tranquil expression on his face finally started to become grave, bit by bit. The gigantic light array slowly rotated in the air. The frightening spiritual energy fluctuations radiating out from it had condensed together, causing incomparable erratic spiritual energy hurricanes to billow out, and even caused some distortions to appear in the sky. When the 2 rank 5 spiritual arrays appeared at the same time, their might was considerably astonishing. With a trace of shock, countless people looked at the spectacle before them. Although they were able to guess that Mu Chen had some hidden tricks up his sleeves, they never expected that he would actually conjure 2 rank 5 spiritual arrays at once. If these 2 rank 5 spiritual arrays were to released, even Jiyu Qianyang might not dare to show the slightest bit of disdain, right? The gazes of the countless students that participated in the hunt were turning scorching, but were not ignited with the flames of hope. Of the 3 fights, they were able to see that Mu Chen's one was the most important, and was even the most critical one of them. If Mu Chen was able to fight to a draw, Shen Sangxing and Li Xiantong would definitely give their utmost to ensure that the final result would be a draw. That way, the students would still achieve the final victory. At the other 2 giant peaks, both parties that were releasing their full might had also noticed this situation. Sensing this, Shen Sangxing and Li Xuantong's tensed bodies faintly relaxed by some degree. They were also worried about Mu Chen. However, seeing the spectacle before them, they knew that the latter really did leave some tricks up his sleeves. As for Lin Jing and Zhu Qingshan, both of them were slightly startled as they thought, no wonder why Shen Sangxing and Li Xiantong were willing to allow a freshman, whose strength was only at the heavenly transformation stage initial phase, to come up and fight. So, this freshman isn't that simple after all. Looks like the fight this time was truly interesting. 2 rank 5 spiritual arrays. Jiyu Qianyang had also raised his head and gazed towards the 2 enormous objects in the sky. The spiritual energy pressure sweeping out of them had made his clothes violently flap. His fiery red hair fluttered about, and his expression finally turned dignified and grave. Being able to cause some much activity, with your strength at the heavenly transformation stage initial phase. You're truly incredible, said Jiyu Qianyang slowly. I just managed to pull a fast one. If this was a life or death battle, I might not have that long of a time to arrange my spiritual arrays, replied Mu Chen while shaking his head. With his current strength, arranging a rank 5 spiritual array was still, somewhat, difficult. Furthermore, his success rate was not 100%. If he was unable to make contact with the heart-eye state, he might not have been able to achieve this step. As for the spiritual array seed, that was completely relying on foreign objects. That treasure was something that Mu Chen had used to scare people. However, as of now, he had no choice but to use it. After all, Mu Chen felt that he was not able to defeat Jiyu Qianyang using a single rank 5 spiritual array. The result is more important than the process. The so-called fast one. That also depends on whether you're capable of achieving it in the first place. Jiyu Qianyang said with a faint smile. A scarlet shadow seemed to be erupting, bit by bit, from within his eyes. In the next instant, his hands started to slowly spread out. Akin to flames, scarlet-red spiritual energy furiously erupted from within his body. At this instant, the temperature of this stretch of the world seemed to rise, while the ground he was standing on turned unusually dry and parched. Make your move. Let me see exactly how strong the might of your 2 rank 5 spiritual arrays are. As scarlet-red spiritual energy enveloped Jiyu Qianyang, akin to flames, his indifferent laughing voice resounded. Taking a deep breath, Mu Chen gently nodded his head. Without saying any more nonsense, he raised his head and gazed towards the 2 gigantic spiritual arrays in the sky. Other than the demonic lotus spiritual array, the spiritual array that was arranged by the spiritual array seed was called the mysterious yin spiritual array. It was also a rank 5 spiritual array. However, according to Mu Chen's estimates, this mysterious yin spiritual array could only be considered as an initial ranked one among the rank 5 arrays. That meant that it could only achieve the prestige similar to a heavenly completion initial stage. If the 2 rank 5 spiritual arrays were to simultaneously erupt, they should be able to deal with Jiyu Qianyang, right? As Mu Chen's eyes sparkled, he no longer had any more hesitation. His hands instantly came together to form a hand seal, causing the 2 spirit arrays to be activated. Boom. Rumble. Following Mu Chen's activation, the 2 gigantic spiritual arrays instantly started to revolve as astonishing spiritual energies radiated from them. As the 2 gigantic black lotuses revolved, their black petals started to fold up. At their center, a black light, which had been compressed to the extreme point where they took shape, gushed out. At the place where they collided, a glowing lotus, approximately 3 meters high, took shape and appeared. The size of this glowing lotus was not small. It pulsated akin to the beating of a heart. While it was pulsating, terrifying fluctuations started to radiate from it. Crackle. Crackle. At the other side, the mysterious yin spiritual array had also erupted, causing the chilling air from the world to condense. In the next instant, it formed a black-colored stream in the middle of the spiritual array. The stream splashed as it flowed, causing an extremely chilling air to radiate out. At this moment, even the air was frozen solid by the flowing stream. Due to the glowing lotus that was pulsing like a beating heart, and the black-colored water stream, the world became cold and gloomy. Interesting. Flames erupted within Jiyu Qianyang as he slowly clenched his hands. Senior brother Jiyu, please. In the sky, with a dignified expression on his face, Mu Chen extended his thin finger and gave the air a tap. As his fingertip descended, ripples seemed to spread out from the space. Boom. At the place where the fingertip had tapped down, the pulsing glowing lotus shot over. Akin to a giant black python, the black-colored stream also shot over, with the extremely cold air contained within causing even the air to get frozen. Swish. Swish. The 2 astonishing attacks streaked across the horizon, akin to lightning. Before the countless anxious gazes, they violently rushed towards Jiyu Qianyang down below. The hearts of everyone watching skipped a beat. Regardless of the surroundings of the spiritual light mountain, or the northern public square, everyone had opened their eyes wide and clenched their fists. Under the attentive gazes of countless people, Jiyu Qianyang's face had turned exceedingly grave. Looking at the 2 terrifying attacks sweeping towards him, he suddenly brought his hands together. Scarlet-red spiritual energy instantly erupted out, akin to an inferno. Heavenly inflammation, divine art, flaming dragon's protection. Following the deep voice that rang out from Jiyu Qianyang, boundless spiritual energy frantically condensed. As an astonishing dragon roar rang out, the spiritual energy transformed into a vivid and lifelike flaming dragon. Giving a long roar, it occupied the space below Jiyu Qianyang, its gigantic body sparkling with an indestructible radiance. He had actually used his strongest defense. Upon seeing this, the eyes of both Lin Jing and Zhu Qingshan faintly contracted. They thought, looks like even Jiyu Qianyang is feeling some pressure. He immediately utilized his strongest defense upon making a move. Roar! As the flaming dragon sat down, two streaks of light were already howling over. Without the slightest bit of hesitation, they violently impacted against it without a single shred of mercy. Bang! At the instant of impact, a muffled sound that made everyone's hearts tremble rang out. In the next instant, everyone saw a gigantic spiritual shock wave, 1,000 meters high, sweeping out as cracks rapidly extended from the point of impact. Looking at the shock wave sweeping out, Mu Chen immediately exhibited the soaring dragon technique that he had prepared beforehand. As the dragon's shadow appeared, with a flash, he appeared thousands of meters away, evading the incoming blast. After evading the shock wave, Mu Chen looked towards the giant peak, with incomparable graveness showing in his eyes. He did not know exactly what result the attack that he had sent out would have. He hoped that it would have some effect. After all, he was unable to arrange such an attack again. He was also not able to find the second spiritual array seed for his use. It was not only him who had such a thought. Countless gazes tightly locked onto the dust-filled area, as everyone tightly clenched their fists. It was already not easy for Mu Chen to reach such a step. If this fight was able to end here, that would be a monumentally good thing for them. On the other two giant peaks, both Shen Sangxing and Li Xiantong remained quiet without making any move. Clearly, they were all waiting for the result of Mu Chen's fight. If Mu Chen was able to achieve a draw, as everyone hoped, it would be infinitely easier for them. If he had carelessly gave up a loss, either one of them might need to be prepared to pay a very high price. Obviously, that was not the scenario they wanted to see. Under the convergence of countless gazes, the dust on the giant peak finally started to slowly clear away. Following the dissipation of the dust, a figure gradually became clearer and clearer. Jiyu Qianyang was still standing on the giant peak. The hearts of countless people had seemingly turned cold at this moment as they stared astringently at the male standing on the giant peak, whose scarlet-red hair was akin to flames dancing in the wind. Jiyu Qianyang was actually successful in receiving the attacks from two rank 5 spiritual arrays. He was, unexpectedly, strong to such a level. Sigh, it's a pity. A sigh resonated within the hearts of everyone. While everywhere was deathly silent, Jiyu Qianyang faintly trembled as the sleeves around his hands instantly turned into dust. In the next instant, everyone saw fresh blood dripping from his left arm. As for the right arm, it faintly hung down as though it had lost all of its strength. An arm of Jiyu Qianyang seemed to have been temporarily crippled from the earlier collision. Under everyone's gazes, Jiyu Qianyang revolved his spiritual energy, causing the blood stains on his arms to gradually evaporate away. Raising his head, one could clearly see extreme graveness present within his eyes. Fortunately, I didn't let my guard down. If not, I might have already lost. Jiyu Qianyang's voice deeply rang out. If he had not cleverly utilized his strongest defense, the injuries he sustained as of now might have been even worse. Upon hearing his words, Mu Chen gave a helpless laugh and thought, Jiyu Qianyang is undeniably one of the 3 great generals. He truly is not easy to deal with. Mu Chen had given his utmost, however, he could only temporarily cripple a single arm of the latter. Jiyu Qianyang stared gravely at Mu Chen, without speaking and even without making any moves. Everyone knew that's because by losing the rank 5 spiritual array, if Mu Chen did not have any other methods, it would already be needless to continue this fight. Naturally, Jiyu Qianyang would not give Mu Chen a second chance to arrange any spiritual arrays. Within the silence that blotted the skies, under the attentive gazes of everyone, Mu Chen's eyes started to slowly close again. When Mu Chen closed his eyes again, everyone was instantly shocked. Even Shen Sangxing and Li Xiantong violently contracted their eyes. From the looks of it, Mu Chen didn't exhaust all of his abilities yet. He still had some hidden methods. At this time, Mu Chen, obviously, would not continue to arrange a spiritual array, as his speed was too slow. Furthermore, Jiyu Qianyang would not give him a second opportunity to do so. Therefore, he needed to utilize other methods. However, what methods would truly allow him, whose strength was at the heavenly transformation stage initial phase, to contend against Jiyu Qianyang? Nobody knew. Therefore, they could only lock their eyes tightly onto Mu Chen in the sky. At this moment, Jiyu Qianyang's forehead had faintly wrinkled. Although he did not assume that Mu Chen was just putting up an act, after experiencing the rank 5 spiritual arrays earlier, he would not see the latter as an ordinary freshman again. However, as to exactly what method Mu Chen would use to contend against him, he appeared slightly curious. After all, common methods would definitely not be able to let a person of heavenly transformation stage initial phase to contend with an opponent of heavenly completion stage initial phase. In the air, Mu Chen, whose eyes were tightly shut, did not make everyone wait for long. Lightning was faintly discernible around his body as it started to appear, while his skin started to turn a silvery color, bit by bit. The peals of thunder quietly rang out. Is that the lightning god physique? Upon seeing this, a trace of disappointment and doubt flashed past the eyes of Shen Sangsheng and Li Xiantong. They had also practiced the lightning god physique before. Although it was capable of increasing one's combat prowess by quite a bit, it was far from being able to substitute the disparity of Mu Chen from Jiyu Qianyang. If Mu Chen tried to use this to contend against Jiyu Qianyang, the result was already clearly evident. In the sky, Mu Chen's eyes slowly opened as lightning sparkled within them. Lightning arcs danced and jumped around his body as a destructive power was faintly discernible as it radiated out. His strength has grown. Jiyu Qianyang's eyes faintly narrowed as disappointment flashed within them as he thought, this is far from enough. The ones who felt this wasn't only them. Even the participating students in the surroundings of the spiritual light mountain faintly wrinkled their foreheads, as some worry surfaced within their eyes. Although Mu Chen's aura had grown stronger, it was clearly far from being able to contend with Jiyu Qianyang. However, facing those gazes that blotted to sky, Mu Chen did not care to bother much about them, with his gaze only having Jiyu Qianyang present within. In the next instant, he took a step forward. With his body transforming into a bolt of lightning, he shot forward. Jiyu Qianyang did not have the slightest trace of movement as he looked at Mu Chen, who was hurtling over akin to a bolt of lightning. Gently shaking his head, he thought, is Mu Chen trying to shatter the broken jar? However, for him to just rush over like this. Giving a helpless smile, he did not continue to think about it. With a twist of his palm, scarlet-red spiritual energy rose out, akin to dancing flames, as boundless fluctuations started to radiate out. Whoosh! Mu Chen's speed was exceedingly quick. Within a number of breaths, he had seemingly appeared before Jiyu Qianyang. Without the slightest trace of hesitation, he immediately sent a fist rumbling out. Spiritual energy burning with black flames gushed out while bringing along strong fluctuations. This caused even the ground to crack under the force of his full-force attack. The violent fist of winds caused Jiyu Qianyang's hair to shock and flutter. However, the latter only shook his head gently. Clenching his finger tightly, in the next instant, Jiyu Qianyang similarly sent a fist rumbling out. Sigh. Looking at the fists that were about to smash together in a moment, a low sigh rang out in the hearts of everyone watching. There were even some people who had turned their heads away. In such a head-on confrontation, Mu Chen simply didn't have the slightest chance of victory. Wang Tong and the rest laughed bitterly, before shaking their heads and sighing. Su Ling's lovable face turned pale at the moment. Only Luo Li, standing beside her, still had clear eyes, while tightly staring at Mu Chen, because she knew him too well. Regardless of how difficult the situation was, he would never do an action that was absolutely pointless. Under the unblinking gazes of countless people, Mu Chen's and Jiyu Qinyan's fists were about to collide. However, just at this instant, the other hand of Mu Chen quickly formed a mysterious symbol. Hum. Hum. Following the completion of that symbol, astonishing sounds of lightning furiously rang out from within his body. In the meridians of a part of his body, an uneven black lightning bead furiously exploded at this instant. Bang! At the instant when the black lightning bead exploded, an indescribably terrifying force gushed out from within, akin to a flood. Black-colored lightning liquid overflowed, circulating erratically along his meridians. Intense pain spread out from within Mu Chen's body, causing his eyes to turn bloodshot, as the capillaries in his eyes bulged out. Despite this, he firmly resisted the pain and hurriedly displayed the lightning god physique, frantically absorbing the terrifying power of lightning. Bang! At this same instant, the fists of Mu Chen and Jiyu Qianyang violently collided into each other. Black-colored lightning suddenly gushed out from every pore of Mu Chen's body, while a faint bloody mist was even discernible. Boom! An astonishingly loud sound that shook the heavens and earth rang out and resonated across this stretch of the world. A violent tremor seemingly ran through the giant peak that seemed to prop the sky up, while everyone could see that the earth there had collapsed, as giant cracks endlessly extended from there like black pythons. Waves of shattered rock shot out from the origin of impact, hiding the skies and covering the earth as they shot out in all directions, before transforming into fragments that blotted the skies with a bang. Everyone opened their eyes wide as they stared at the place where shattered rocks continued to shoot out. The place was enveloped by the dazzling rays of erratic spiritual energy, causing people to be unable to exactly see what had happened within. Shen Sangxing, Li Xiantong, as well as Lin Jing and Zhu Qingshan, locked their gazes there with graveness showing in their eyes. At the instant when their gazes had locked onto the origin of impact, the pupils of the four violently contracted as an erratic roar of thunder furiously resounded. In the next instant, a shadow had, unexpectedly, shot out from the place of dazzling radiance. The 2 feet of the figure dug into the ground, creating 2-foot holes in the hard stone surface, before dragging back, forming 2 eye-piercing marks, approximately 100 meters long. Scorched marks were presented on the rocks along the sides of those marks. Exactly who was that? Everyone's gazes instantly converged over where the figure that was shot out staggered and stumbled, before stabilizing his footing. As the radiance dissipated, bit by bit, it finally revealed a conspicuous head of scarlet-red hair. That was Jiyu Qianyang. The pupils of countless people violently expanded, with some even forgetting to breath as thick shock and incredulous expressions crept onto their faces. How is that possible? Regardless if the surroundings were the spiritual light mountain or the northern public square, everyone was mumbling in disbelief. The person that was miserably flung out was, unexpectedly, Jiyu Qianyang. On the podium, the gazes of the elders watching the fight started to turn dignified at this moment. What's happening? The 4, Shen Sangxing, Li Xiantong, Lin Jing and Zhu Qingshan, looked in astonishment at the spectacle that made people feel incredulous. Even the 4 of them were slightly able to regain their clarity. Previously, the 2 rank 5 spiritual arrays were unable to force Jiyu Qianyang to such a miserable state. However, could this kind of head-on confrontation, that should not have the slightest chance of victory, lead to such a result? Under the shocked gazes that blotted the sky, Jiyu Qianyang slowly raised his head. At this moment, an obvious trace of blood dripped down from the corner of his mouth as he looked towards the direction of the giant peak, with a similar shock in his eyes. From there, an erratic spiritual energy was still enveloping the place. You're truly formidable. I never imagined that you're actually still hiding an ace that's even more formidable than the 2 rank 5 spiritual arrays. Jiyu Qinyan's hoarse and deep voice rang out, as he wiped away the blood stains at the corner of his mouth, while no longer appearing to be as relaxed as before. Within the center of the radiance where the erratic spiritual energy was still present, footsteps seemed to be ringing out as everyone's gazes tightly locked onto that area. Thump. Thump. The sounds of footsteps become increasingly heavy. Within the spiritual energy radiance, a figure became increasingly clear. In the next moment, he stepped out of the dazzling radiance and appeared before all of the gazes. Hiss. When that figure appeared, everyone instantly sucking in a mouthful of cold air. The Mu Chen that had appeared before them had a huge change from his previous appearance. Shattered lines had appeared on his body as black-colored lightning liquid endlessly flowed from the pores of his body, before enveloping him within. Black-colored lightning danced across his body, while the pair of black pupils were filled with an indescribable savageness that seemed to be the flavor of destruction. If the previous Mu Chen gave people a gentle and calm feeling, the current him was akin to the creature that had crawled out of the depths to destroy the heavens and earth, causing people's hearts to palpitate. What is that? Everyone looked in shock at the changed Mu Chen. The destructive energies radiating from him, was that truly something that could be displayed by a person at the heavenly transformation stage initial phase? That's the lightning god physique, muttered Shen Sangsheng and Li Xiantong as their eyes were brimming with doubt. They were able to detect the familiar fluctuations from Mu Chen's body. However, this familiar lightning god physique was much stronger than the lightning god physique they knew. Within the northern public square, countless people were still in shock, while the faces of the elders at the podium turned grave and dignified. This fluctuation. The abstruse eyes of Dean Tai Keng faintly contracted, before saying in a soft voice, "This is the might of the divine black lightning." Unexpectedly, there's a strand of divine black lightning in that brat's body. He truly is messing around, said a white-haired elder on the side as he shook his head, before continuing, "Although I don't know where he got that divine black lightning from, it's the stuff that even people of sovereign rank would not dare to casually touch." However, that kid actually dared to keep it within his body. Ha ha, that physique cultivating deity tier spiritual art sure looks familiar. Dean Tai Keng gave a faint smile without saying anything else. However, the gaze that locked onto the figure of the youth in the light screen radiated with increasing interest. Looks like our Northern Heavens Spiritual Academy has produced another brat with a monstrous talent. On the giant peak, under the attentive gazes of countless people, Mu Chen slowly raised his head. With black-colored lightning liquid flowing around him, he tightly stared at Jiyu Qianyang. At this moment, a hoarse voice, along with the flavor of destruction, slowly rang out. "Let's continue." As the hoarse voice rang out, Mu Chen took a step forward, with the earth seemingly vibrating at this instant. Part 1 end here.